This mother discovered that her daughter was being bullied at school. Desperate, she approached the school principal and the police, but no one listened to her. Despite it being a serious issue, everyone was treating bullying as if it were nothing. Since no one lifted a finger to resolve the situation, she decided to show what happens to those who mess with her daughter. There's a heavy downpour, but that doesn't stop Ja from waiting outside the school for her daughter, a young girl named Aram. Ja juggles her time between work and taking care of her daughter, trying to be as present as possible in her life. As soon as Aram leaves class, she sees her mother on the other side of the street, sheltering from the rain with an umbrella. Ja is happy and calls her daughter over, but Aram is visibly embarrassed. Aram goes to her mother and drags her to a corner, away from everyone's eyes. There, Aram tells her mother that it has to stop, and that she needs to stop picking her up at the school gate all the time, as if she was still a little kid. She says she's grown up and being seen with her mother by her friends is embarrassing. Ja is deeply hurt to hear this, and emphasizes that she's just trying to be a good mother. Aram distances herself from her mother and goes under the umbrella of another young woman. As she moves away from her mother, Aram pretends not to even know her. Sad, Ja returns to her car and becomes pensive. She remembers when she was a teenager, and her relationship with her mother was terrible. Her mother always said she was a disappointment, always criticized her, and sometimes even said it was a mistake to give birth to her. Ja grew up hearing these words of hatred, feeling inadequate and unwanted, and that's why she tries to be the best mother possible to her daughter. She wants to be a friend and be present in her daughter's life, but despite all her efforts, there is still friction between her and Aram. Ja also has many insecurities because she was a single mother for a long time and had to put in a lot of effort to raise Aram before meeting her current partner. After being ignored by her daughter at the school gate, Ja has to swallow her sadness as she has a long day of work ahead. At night, when Ja returns from work, her daughter is already asleep. She goes to Aram's room and gently strokes her hand as she sleeps. While touching her hand, Ja notices a bruise on Aram's wrist. Aram wakes up feeling the touch on her hand, and Ja asks what happened, if someone did that to her. Aram avoids the question and tells her mother that she accidentally hit herself and got hurt, but that doesn't convince her mother. Ja leaves her daughter's room, unconvinced and very worried. She then goes to talk to her husband, Sang. She explains to him that she saw the bruise on their daughter and thinks she might be experiencing bullying at school. She tells her husband that it's best for them to go to the police, but Sang says it won't do any good because if the bullies are from wealthy families, they'll hire good lawyers and the young people will get away with it. He offers another option, to transfer Aram to another school. Ja gets irritated hearing these alternatives because she believes her husband wants to run away instead of facing the situation head on. For her, it's unacceptable that the victim has to change schools while the aggressors can go free and unpunished. Sang doesn't change his mind either and warns his wife that if she goes to the authorities it will bring shame to the family. He also emphasizes that he's not even Aram's biological father. Irritated and sad, Ja leaves the room, and when she gets to the hallway, she sees Aram standing there and heard the whole conversation. Aram has a sad expression and says her stepfather is right, and that some things never change. Aram goes back to her room completely defeated, and her mother stands in the hallway, feeling that it's unfair to Aram, who is a good girl, studious and calm. Even without her husband's support, Ja doesn't give up on protecting her daughter and schedules a meeting at a cafe with her daughter's teacher, Mr. Kim. They meet and talk, and Ja explains to him that she fears her daughter is being bullied at school. To Ja's surprise, Mr. Kim treats everything with indifference and says he could only do something if there were evidence that Aram is being disturbed at school. He also says that if she wants, she can transfer her daughter to another school. Ja gets furious and tells the teacher that she will get evidence that something is wrong with her daughter. Ja goes to the Department of Education in search of evidence but doesn't find anything. She goes to the police, but no one helps her there either. Unsure of who to turn to, Ja goes to a courthouse and attends a trial to see how such cases are handled. She watches a bullying trial, and the bully's sentence is to apologize to the victim. She sees the bully apologizing to the other kid, renewing her hope. Ja understands that bullying cases can indeed be judged and resolved in court. After watching this trial, Ja is more hopeful and approaches the judge of the case, Judge Jin. He listens to the situation, suggests they talk at a cafe, and gives his number to Ja. As soon as she has some free time, Ja calls the judge to try to schedule a meeting, but he's never available. Ja then goes to the courthouse to look for him, but when she arrives, she sees a scene that leaves her very sad. The same bully who was tried in court and apologized continues to harass the victim. Nothing has changed. When Ja enters the courthouse, she sees the mother of this bullied boy. The woman is kneeling at the judge's feet, begging him to help her son. At that moment, Ja understands that even though the law has been applied, it's not followed. The bully still harasses the boy. Elsewhere in the city, Aram is pursued by a guy named Bok. He corners her against the wall and accuses her of gossiping and telling what was going on at school. Because of this, now she's targeted by other bullies and will suffer the consequences. The next day, Ja goes to her daughter's school, determined to gather as much information as possible about who is bothering her. A guy from the school named Noah tries to stop Ja and send her away, but a mother defending her daughter is like a lioness, and of course, Ja isn't deterred by him. While conducting her own investigation, Ja has terrible memories of her own past. She recalls that in her youth, she was also a victim of bullies' attacks. And many of these attacks came from a guy named Dong, who disliked Ja because she was friends with his younger brother. Ja knows how painful it is to go through this, and she won't allow her daughter to face the same nightmare. Since she doesn't have the support of the law, Ja decides to take matters into her own hands and goes to a famous nightclub in the city to ask for help. Inside, the security guards try to kick her out, but Ja beats up several of them, showing that she's not playing around. Finally, the owner of the club arrives. She is Ju, an old friend of Ja. Ju went to school with Ja. Back then, Ju was the terror of the teachers. She slept in the classroom and was very confrontational with everyone. But she was also the defender of the weak and oppressed. Once, she attacked the car of a teacher who was taking advantage of one of the students, and whenever a student was being threatened, she took the lead and defended that person. With Ju's support, Ja explains that her idea is to pretend to be a student from the school so she can confront the bullies face to face. Ju agrees to help her old friend. While putting her plan into action, changing her entire appearance, Jae doesn't have the support of her husband or her mother. They both think Ja is going too far in her quest to defend her daughter. At this point, Aram isn't even going to school anymore and spends a lot of time in the hospital, treating her trauma. While Aram remains depressed, Ja enters the school, pretending to be a new student. Ja wants to become a target of bullying to put an end to it once and for all, so she presents herself as a shy student. On the first day of class, Ja understands better what's happening with Aram. Her daughter is being hated by everyone because she stood by her friend, a girl who was bullied before her. As soon as she sits at her desk, Ja reads several scribbles on the table, many of them directed at her daughter, which makes Ja cry. While she reads the various absurdities aimed at her daughter, Ja is surrounded by a group of bullies. They are led by He. The bullies are very insolent and admit that they wrote those insults. Unable to control herself, Ja grabs He. Her action attracts more attention from the classroom, but no one is a match for Ja's fury, who beats up several bullies. While this chaos is happening, Professor Wu enters the classroom, sees what's going on, and takes Ja to the principal's office. Upon arrival, the teacher and the principal ask why she attacked her classmates, and Ja tells the truth. She explains that there's a lot of bullying going on in the classroom and challenges the school to do something. However, the principal does nothing. The students return to the classroom. Even though the principal didn't do anything, the teacher still wants the students to receive more attention from the school staff. After a while, when she calms down, Ja talks to He and asks how things work at that school. He explains that Bok is a bully who intimidates everyone, and all the students know it. But he's not the biggest problem. The one behind the attacks, who orders Bok to intimidate and attack several people, is Tae. Tae is the most dangerous student of all because he comes from a rich and influential family. So, not only do the students fear him, but the school staff themselves also fear him. He explains that Tae does whatever he wants. If he gets tired of someone, he can make that person suffer, be tormented by bullies. And often the pressure is so much that the student needs to be transferred. That's what the teacher suggested to Ja, that she should transfer Aram to another school. He probably suggested this because he knew that the bullying attack had been ordered by Tae. But why did Tae decide to torment Aram so much? Simple, he couldn't handle hearing a no. Tae actually liked Aram and wanted to date her. However, she rejected his request for a relationship. Unable to deal with being rejected by Aram, Tae turned the young girl into the target of all the school bullies. While the mother pretends to be a student to defend her, Aram is in the hospital, in a kind of shock. Aram's friend goes to her house and asks Ja to let her see her friend. Ja takes Aram's friend to see her in the hospital. At the hospital, Aram's friend says she's going to report the bullies, but Aram says it's better not to do that since the bullies are many and they can attack their families. While this drama unfolds, a subplot in the school's top echelon also takes place. Sang is the founder of the school. He pretends to be a well-intentioned man, but the truth is he acts according to his own interests. He tells Professor Wu that he wants to build a new pavilion at the school using government money, and he also promises Wu a higher position at the school. Sang's secretary takes Wu to a hidden corner in the school library, and that's where a secret safe full of money is located. The embezzled money from the school is kept inside the school itself. As soon as the secretary and Wu leave the safe, she leaves, and the professor tries to leave as well, but he is confronted by Aram's friend, who saw everything. Desperate to help Aram, the girl threatens the professor, saying she will expose his embezzlement unless he does something to combat bullying. Wu is not pleased at all to be intimidated by a student. Meanwhile, Ja continues her own investigation. The clues Ja follows end up leading her back to her own past. It turns out that when she was a teenager, Ja was harassed by other young people, but she didn't take it lying down. Ja learned to defend herself from a young age, and one day when she was cornered by one of the bullies, she fought back. This altercation resulted in a tragedy, as one of the guys ended up dead. However, instead of the real culprit being accused, Ja was found guilty and spent 2 years in prison for a crime she didn't commit. That's why she holds resentment for the injustice she suffered. Will Ja be able to solve her daughter's problem and rid herself of her own traumas? Well, that was my analysis of the first episodes of the series Angry Mom from 2015. If you liked it, comment part 2 here so I can bring the continuation of this show. We're in this together. Hugs from Henrique. Mission accomplished, over and out.